Guys, I think I have finally changed my mind on my favorite Middle Eastern airline. Welcome to my coming out video. Mom, Dad, Emirates is officially my favorite Middle Eastern airline. But Dan, are you sure? How can you love an airline that just started installing these last generation seats and markets them as groundbreaking on its 777 fleet? I am not holding back anymore. Today, we are going there. We're talking about why Emirates made this decision and why it might not be as bad as it seems. Of course, I'll also be sharing the experience of flying in pretty much the same setup as their new 777 seat today to try to convey how Emirates managed to win me over. Now, before we get into that, did Emirates pay me $1 million to say this? Of course not. They didn't even pay me 1 dirham. Every single flight I've ever taken on Emirates has been self-funded, paid with my own hard-earned cash or my hard-earned points. I don't think Emirates even knows I exist, so yalla. Before they start noticing, let's get into it. So there's a few places where my videos tend to start most often. I would say that's the Qatar Airways premium check-in in Doha and here at the Emirates premium check-in in Dubai. But today it's going to be a slightly different video that I am really excited to share with you guys. So today the plan is to fly an Emirates A380 from Dubai to Hong Kong, and it really doesn't get better when it comes to flying the Emirates A380 because guess what our flight number is today? EK380. As you can tell, I am very excited. I'm going to be publishing reviews of all the world's best A380 business class products over the next several months, so Emirates, the airline with by far the most A380s in the world, seems like an appropriate place to start. Business class check-in, done. Today's flight leaves from the B gates, so we make our way to the B gates business class lounge. So most of you will know by now that Emirates recently launched a new business class on their 777, and there was a lot of debate and discussion about that because a lot of people were underwhelmed, and understandably so. The seat is pretty much the same with a few minor tweaks as the A380 seat I'm about to hop on. So as I get on board, there's a few things I want to talk about that I don't feel that people who don't fly Emirates are aware of. I'm currently in the business class lounge, which couldn't be more different from the likes of Qatar Airways in the region, but I'd argue that it's amazing in a different way. Let me show you around. This place feels more like its own terminal than a lounge, and the main reason I appreciate that is 1, it literally never feels crowded, and 2, it's not so quiet you'd hear a needle drop, so you can actually breathe and operate like a normal human being. Emirates has the regular business class lounge features like showers and food, although the food selection here is pretty massive and spread out throughout the lounge, which can be a bit cumbersome. They also have more unusual features like shoe shine, a paid spa, a Costa coffee where everything is complimentary, and most impressive, this Moët & Chandon bar which is hidden at the back. Absolutely stunning and very well done. So it is time to hop on board. One of my favorite things when flying Emirates is usually lounge boarding. It's not available at all gates. Unfortunately, it's not available at our specific gate today, B14. So we're gonna head over there, and I don't even know if this is a bus gate. We'll find out. All right, this is exciting. It's our first time ever flying the new Emirates livery. Not that it makes a difference on the inside, it just feels more fun, you know? Our E380 is right here, so I'm ready to go and tell you guys all about it. Quick quiz, do you guys prefer the new or old Emirates livery? I personally think the new one is stunning and really eye-catching, not that any A380 is hard to miss regardless of the livery. Wow, this is very special at Dubai International Airport. Not necessarily in a good way, just very interesting. There is no upper deck boarding today, which explains why there was no lounge boarding. Instead, I'm assuming we're gonna have to get in the front, walk through first class, and take the stairs up. Quite a cool, different experience, just the small things that make one flight different from another. This obviously isn't supposed to be like a regular review since I review Emirates all the time, but I'll still go to the Nonstop Dan seat map database because it seems like you guys love it, and making these seat maps is actually my favorite part of the whole editing process anyway. So the Emirates A380 upper deck is split between one first class cabin at the front and two business class cabins behind that. This massive one isn't somewhere I'd prefer to sit because it's less private, so this rear cabin is my preference, but my preferred seats back here weren't available when I booked this flight, so I end up opting for 20 Alpha. When selecting seats on Emirates, just try to choose either of the seats that look to be closer to the window on their seat map or the ones that are closer to the center. This feels like a good time to look at the current Emirates fleet situation and how that's about to change. Given the sheer size of this airline, it's remarkable that they only fly two aircraft types, the Boeing 777 and the Airbus A380. The 777 fleet is broken down between a massive majority of 777-300 ERs and fewer than a dozen 777-200 LRs. The 200 LRs have a unique 222 configuration in business, but the far more common 777-300 ER has long had the infamous 232 business class layout. As a result, for the past several years, Emirates has offered unbelievably different business class experiences on its two primary aircraft types. Fast forward to 2024 and we're finally getting new seats on the 777-300. The only thing is, this is almost the exact same seat they already have on the A380. Besides some changes to the seat finishes, what you're about to see is the flagship Emirates business class experience going forward fleet-wide. Well, we'll have to wait to see the A350 later this year, but let's hop on board what will eventually be the one and only business class seat on Emirates, at least probably. I just want to jump in with a bit of context about this trip because I flew from Scotland to France to Abu Dhabi, zipped up to Dubai and flew Dubai to Hong Kong. Very long journey, and every step of the way I managed to keep connected. If something goes wrong with one of my flights and I don't have data, I'm helpless and there's nothing I can do to try to fix the situation on my own as fast and easily as possible. So the key, of course, is to always have an eSIM installed on my phone, and I recently found the most convenient eSIM I've ever come across. Introducing today's video sponsor, Saily, from the company behind one of my favorite longtime sponsors, NordVPN. So why is Saily so good? Well, not only does it allow me to purchase really cheap data in over 150 countries, but even better, it allows me to do it all on one SIM. Once you've installed your Saily eSIM, you don't need to install another one. You just go into the app and add whichever country you're traveling to so that you can always keep that SIM active. If you're still overpaying your regular phone provider from back home when you travel, that stops today, and guess what? You can even save 15% on your first Saily eSIM purchase at saily.com/nonstopdan by clicking the link at the top of the description or by scanning the QR code right here, right now. It really means the world to me, guys, when you support my longtime sponsors like Saily from NordVPN. So thank you so much. And now on with the video. Turning left is cool and all, but taking the stairs is just so much cooler. It reminds you you exist in the context of all that came before you. You get to see economy and first class on the way to business. The iconic Kim Kardashian beiges of Emirates. Someone on board is just as excited as me today.
I was just telling Dan, there's just some special feeling you get when you step into an Emirates cabin. Like, I don't know, it just makes me so happy because it feels like a very special type of environment you don't really get on many airlines.
Okay, we've made it on board. People look at photos and they say, oh, the faux wood, it looks tacky, I don't like that. But when you board, I personally love it. It's a very special feeling that you wouldn't want at home, but on a flight, there's something so invigorating to me about boarding an Emirates flight. I don't know what it is. This sounds like an ad, but it's not. I paid for this and all the Emirates flights I've ever taken on my own.
Emirates crew usually start handing out pre-departure drinks as people board, so today we start out with a choice of pre-departure beverages from this exciting selection. By the way, I saw some other people order things that weren't on this tray, which I think is possible on slightly M-tier flights like this. Next up, massive scented hot towels. We're also welcomed by name by the crew who introduce themselves and say they'll be taking care of us. Oscar and I are being taken care of by Yuli, a French Colombian who is lovely. The crew also comes around offering to take Polaroids of everyone, which is one of those fun Emirates touches. Again, very mindful of the fact that people want to create memories on board. On today's flight, as on most Emirates daytime flights, there are no amenity kits, although most things you need are available in the lavatories or on request. You do get slippers and an eye mask, as well as pajamas, which surprises me considering the press release states they're only available on flights over 9 hours. Ours isn't even 8, so I don't know what's going on here, but I'm not complaining. Here's a photo of the pajamas instead of me trying them on because I've already had these on many flights. I know they're comfortable and I want to save these unopened pairs for a giveaway to you guys someday. We're also handed our menus, which we'll check out after takeoff. Going back to the photos of the new 777 business class, those seats like ours have a mini bar with a selection of drinks. In many cultures, people don't like bothering the crew whenever they're thirsty, so I think this is a great feature. You also have smartly placed charging and tech in general, which surprisingly many airlines manage to mess up. Meanwhile, Emirates even has a detachable tablet, meaning you have 3 screens when you add the small remote. Now, as we depart scorching Dubai, let me point out the one benefit you get from being on the new livery while inside the plane. This pimped out gorgeous winglet. May I ask you a small favor? If this isn't your first time watching my videos, please consider subscribing. When I reach 1 million subscribers, I'll be doing my biggest giveaway ever, so the sooner we get there, the sooner that'll become a possibility. Now, time for my favorite thing, food. Whenever I fly Emirates from Dubai, I am so excited to eat. Food is one of my biggest sources of happiness and excitement in life, and unfortunately, airplane food often doesn't quite hit right. That said, let's have a look at what the Emirates chefs have whipped up for us today. The menu on Emirates rotates by month, but generally stays quite similar and is adjusted for each destination's taste profile. Besides that, here's a look at the wine list. The selection of drinks is so big that I just panic when asked what I want and go into autopilot and order a Middle Eastern classic.
Excuse me, no one is going to be able to convince me that olives are not the best in-flight drink accompaniment. Better than nuts, better than chips. Especially these. And a lemon mint with that. I mean,
the meal is served shortly after takeoff, starting out with my specially ordered vegan appetizer. Emirates recently started crew plating meals on board, though I can't see much of a difference than before, to be honest. The best part of this setup is the bread, and guys, if you ever fly Emirates, you have to try their focaccia. It is unbelievably good. When it comes time for the main, Yuli happens to be walking past with a tray of all 3 options from the menu. I asked for a quote-unquote picture to show my mom so I can see all 3. I mean, Emirates food has always been more about flavor than the presentation, but yeah, this isn't really giving today. Nonetheless, I get to try the mapo tofu from the menu, and as a mapo tofu connoisseur, this is a good 75% of the way there, which is quite impressive for an airplane dish. Lastly, dessert. I opt for the chocolate pecan cake from the menu, which is as delicious as it looks. I round it all off with an oat milk coffee. If there's one takeaway for you guys about the meal, I think it should be that it perfectly mirrors the reason Emirates chose not to install flashy new seats on its 777s. Emirates business class, and dare I say Emirates as a whole, is not an airline focused on luxury. Let me explain.
so the meal is done. And you know, I could have flown Emirates' new 777 business to Geneva,
but it's not really that different that I need to. I can show you the essential experience and what it's like on your average Emirates flight here. The amount of hate I saw Emirates getting when they released that seat is just crazy. And of course we all wish there was something maybe a bit more private at least, but it's important to understand that Emirates is not on the hamster wheel anymore. They're not trying to establish themselves. They're not really desperate to get anyone's attention anymore because they already have it. They've established their brand. Many people are completely loyal to Emirates and will only fly Emirates. And that's with their current seats. They're incredibly profitable. So what reason do they have to introduce anything that's even better when what they have on the A380, at least in my opinion, is great? There's also something to be said for consistency. Emirates is installing pretty much the same seat on its 777s as it has on the A380, meaning eventually most of their fleet will have a very similar seat, so you know what to expect when you get on board an Emirates flight. I was just sitting here doing some quick calculations, and yes, Qatar Airways Q Suite is of course a more advanced seat. The best thing about it, in my opinion, is that you can open it up and enjoy the quad, which is an experience unlike anything else. In terms of comfort, I would say this is a lot more comfortable, but besides that, Qatar Airways has 11 other business class seats in its fleet. That's right, 11 seats that are not Q Suite, not even close. So when you fly them, you really don't know what to expect. You can get an equipment swap. You could take an itinerary connecting in Doha with 4 flights and have a completely different seat every single time. So that's one type of consistency that I know a lot of people find valuable. By the way, I also want to emphasize here, I'm not saying Emirates is more luxurious in business class than many other airlines. That's simply not the case. I'm just saying that based on how my preferences have evolved, I now prefer the overall experience of this. And I can't even really put my finger on what it is. There's just an X factor here that I've kind of become obsessed with over time that's really fun, and it feels safe and familiar to come back to. So if you've never flown Emirates business class, I'm very curious what your first impression would be. So yeah, that's my little rant. I'm gonna head back to the bar now and enjoy some socializing with whoever's there, I guess OSKAR.
This perfectly brings us to the bar, something that Emirates offers in different forms on its entire fleet of around 100 A380s. When you think about it, Emirates skews more in the direction of Virgin Atlantic or JetBlue. Why? Well, as I said, rather than going upscale, they just want you to enjoy yourself. When it comes to food, they choose tasty food over fancy food because again, tasty food is more fun than fancy, at least to me. When it comes to how to use the space on board, again, they invest in a space where you can have fun. After a bit of time at the bar pretending I'm an extrovert, I head back to my seat for a nap. Immediately after takeoff, Emirates gives out mattress pads, even on relatively short flights on the A380 and 777s alike, so now it's time to enjoy that. Very few airlines invest in quality mattresses because they don't realize what a game changer it can be. Not a seat cover, which is common, but a true mattress. Air New Zealand knows what's good, United knows what's good, and so does Emirates. They all understand that this can turn an average seat into one of the most comfortable beds in the sky. The seat is also wide and spacious even by the feet, so again, a more fancy looking seat isn't necessarily better. I spend the next 4 hours working rather than using the entertainment system and end up visiting the lavatory every hour because you gotta stay hydrated on board. I didn't show you these guys earlier, but again, they don't have Aesop soap or any unnecessarily fancy things, but they have hand towels and orchid. It looks nice and it's clean. As we're getting closer to Hong Kong, we end up experiencing some moderate turbulence over Bangladesh. At the same time, the sun is setting outside, so beautiful, and shortly after that, my pre-landing light bite is served. Okay, let's not sugarcoat it. This is boring. You see it, I see it. But you know it's not boring? This dessert. 2 plant-based cakes on 1 flight? I mean... I haven't really spoken about the crew as a whole, but as is typical in the region, they are unfortunately inconsistent. But hey, Yuli was a star.
Please, I'm a star!
as we approach Hong Kong, this brings me to the big question after a video of pretty much non-stop praise. Is Emirates perfect? Of course not. You can expect a video eventually explaining how I've progressively been changing my mind on Middle Eastern airlines as a whole, but overall this was a fantastic flight in my opinion. It's impossible to argue that this is a more luxurious flight than their closest connecting flight competitor, Qatar Airways. I mean, it simply doesn't come close in a luxury regard, but I leave you with this question. Is luxury the only thing that matters? To some, the answer will be yes, but to others, including me, fun can sometimes be more appealing. Emirates Business Class has the fun factor, and it's always a pleasure to fly, assuming you get this type of seat, whether on the A380 or on their newly configured 777s.
So obviously I've been speaking about how Emirates Business Class is very expensive. So how do I manage to fly it with relative frequency in their first class and their business class? This is quite complicated, and it's not as cheap as flying most other airlines with points, but there's a way you can do it. So there's primarily 3 different frequent flyer programs that are relatively easy to redeem on Emirates through. Of course, there's Emirates' own program, Emirates Skywards. There's Qantas frequent flyer program, and then there's Air Canada Aeroplan. And what you'll notice is that with Emirates, and especially with Qantas, the points price is much lower than with Air Canada, but the taxes are very high. So Air Canada has a higher points price, and in the end, those kind of even out. So the price ends up being about the same these days, whether you're redeeming through Air Canada or through Qantas or Emirates programs. But acquiring Air Canada points is much easier. So the good thing about this is that anyone, anywhere in the world, wherever you live, you don't have to be a US citizen. You can live in Europe, Australia, Asia, Africa, South America, North America, and take advantage of this. But again, it's not going to be very cheap. However, you will save quite a bit compared to redeeming cash. I don't want to give very specific examples in this video because you don't want any sweet spots being closed, so to speak. I think Air Canada and Emirates have a good partnership at the moment, and they're both happy with the rates because the rates have been hiked up quite a lot. But I'll teach you all the best ways to get the best Emirates deals in my Points Master program. So if you're interested in flying Emirates and you're not a US citizen, so you can't get good credit cards, but you want to know how to be able to benefit from the benefits of points wherever you live, you can check out my Points Master program at the QR code now, at the link at the top of the description. And by the way, there's also a free starter program that can get you familiar with what I'm talking about, and one of the 7 programs I teach in Points Master that will teach you to fly over 70 different airlines. So again, check that out here or down here.
On that note, thank you so much for joining me in today's video, guys. I want to emphasize here that flying Emirates, even with points, is very difficult and very expensive. Luckily, there are so many incredible airlines you can learn to fly for almost nothing, like Qatar Airways Business Class for as little as $600 US each way between Europe and the Middle East. So if you want to learn about Emirates and all these other airlines, once again, scan the QR code, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video, which will be another very positive and surprising one. So until then, as always, fly safe.